Good evening and welcome to this paper topic number 1 example. What I want to use this is to show you a kind of a good example for paper 1, how it's organized, how to explain your argument. So for this person, they did a pretty good job. What their topic was Hamas versus, or defining Hamas as a terrorist organization versus FLN, Irgun, and other kind of anti-colonial. So you can read the beginning part here. If you want to pause it there, just read that a second. That kind of gives you a background. And if you want to use that, something like that in your paper, I'm fine with it. You don't necessarily have to have this memorandum structure with subject, but if you want to write it in the form of a memo, you can go ahead and do that. So 1 paragraph intro, and then 1 paragraph that gives me kind of a lead-in way ahead with the paper. It's important to note that this does not have a history of Hamas in it. It does not have a history of the Irgun, FLN, or any other anti-colonial movement. I want you to go, give me a brief, like 2-paragraph overview, and then go right to your analysis. So in this case, they used they pinned their argument on 3 cases, and what they do is a nice compare and contrast argument to explain their purpose. So first is the context. They go into the context of what Hamas is facing versus what you might see in the Irgun or the FLN. So they compare and contrast the difference between the two, kind of their historical and overall context in the world. So that's the first point that, again, differentiates or emphasizes that Hamas is a terrorist organization versus Irgun and FLN. The second point they make is motivation. And again, they make a pretty strong point when they say the motivation for Hamas is to destroy Israel. That contrasts, again, with the motivation for the anti-colonial terrorists or anti-colonial movements, which didn't have any desire to destroy France or destroy Britain. And Hamas, that differentiates Hamas in that respect. And then the third kind of argument is tactics. And again, the tactics for the Irgun specifically are far different than Hamas. Hamas or Irgun did not kill civilians on the same scale. They didn't focus their attacks against civilians, although there were some incidents there. Hamas almost exclusively focuses on civilian targets, soft targets outside the locus of conflict in Israel proper. You can see it here: pizza parlors, discos, bar mitzvahs. Pardon me. And that's kind of an important distinction. So that's the author here pinned their argument on those 3 facets. They chose these 3 arguments to advance their cause. And then what he did, and what I want you to do, is talk about counter-arguments. So these are a couple of counter-arguments that he anticipated. So Israel used terrorism to achieve its political goals following World War II. And the author, again, gives an explanation why that reasoning is specious. Second argument, Israel high-value targeting is an act of terrorism itself. And again, if you're talking about Hamas and Israel's reaction to Hamas, that may be an argument that someone might make. And again, the author here rebuts that argument. And then Israel's settlement building justifies violence by Hamas. And that's, again, an argument that might make, if you're pro-Hamas, for lack of a better term, you might make. Israel's settlement justifies killing civilians, and the author here kind of rebuts that argument. And then, he doesn't have conclusions or anything like that. I'd recommend having that. And then policy recommendations. If you do have policy recommendations, put those as well. But, really simple, clean prose here. And then the most important thing is these facets of the argument, or these linchpins. He chooses context, motivation, and tactics to argue that Hamas is a terrorist organization, while maybe the Irgun and FLN are not. So that's what I want to see in your paper. That's kind of the structure, the strength of argument that I want to see.